Welcome to this special fireside conversation powered by Proshare. This conversation will be looking at the fit-for-purpose regulatory environment for an inclusive Nigerian capital market. My guest, special one, is Dr. Emomotimi Agama, the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria. It's great to have you. I call you Dr. DG, Digital DG. So many accolades for you this period. Nice to have you.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you.
And with me on the other hand, of course, is the Director of Research, Proshare, who will be having this conversation with the DG of Securities and Exchange Commission Nigeria, Mr. Teslim Shitta-Bey. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Muto. Thank you.
We call him TSV in Proshare. Yes. Thank you. Let's first begin, DG, with your evolution in SEC. You joined SEC in 2004, and just 20 years in your being in SEC, you got that appointment as the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. What has been the experience like getting on board, and what are the lessons? Because people work in places, aspire, but what are the lessons?
Thank you again, Otto, for this opportunity to share my lessons. It's really emotional to speak about them, and because, over time, one has seen that hard work pays. And, coming from my background, so it's important to step back. In my early career, I worked with KPMG, Pitmawi, Kani, Ogunde and Co. When it was KPMG, Pitmawi, Kani, Ogunde and Co. Proceeded to the University of Benin, where I did everything. I was a teacher, I was an accountant, and I was a student. And spent 10 years at the University of Benin. And I had the opportunity of contributing to women development. I was seconded to the National Center for Women Development, Abuja, where I was a special assistant to the Director General then. And for a very short stint, I was at the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Then I decided to change course to the capital market. I joined the Securities and Exchange Commission. And joining the Securities and Exchange Commission, I was posted to a very, very important department, which is at that point in time, the flagship of the SEC. It's called the Securities and Investment Services Department. And as a manager, we had the responsibility of reviewing offer documents and making sure that all of the issues that come to the market are properly packaged and full disclosures are made. So that's where I cut my teeth at the SEC. But in all of this, one had continued to develop himself, learning, reading, understanding, and progressing. And so when duty called for me to become the special assistant to Ms. Daisy Ekine, whom I call the oracle of the market, right? It was, a tall order. Yeah. A tall order to serve somebody that's very, very diligent, somebody that is trustworthy, somebody that has integrity, somebody that has compassion. And so it meant that I must do something, much more right, even though I had, penciled out to take up that responsibility. And under her, I was guided, properly guided. And I could say without a doubt that I became a clone of her because it was important. Yeah. And in those days, if Ms. Ekine gives you an assessment, right, you go home and throw a party because it means you are good, right? Yeah. Exactly. So we all worked hard, from that office. And we rose to the point we became, so until she left me and I continued the journey. And grew up to becoming a deputy director and head of department for, registration, exchanges and market infrastructure. A department that actually was cloned under me, where, we had to bring in commodities market, we had to bring in fintech and innovation. And it was actually the biggest department at the SEC at that time. Yeah. And that was very, very important because managing that department meant that I had to have a cube head And the cube head meant that, my head was divided into 4, wherein a part was speaking to fitness, a part was speaking to exchanges and market infrastructure, a part was speaking to commodity, and the other part was speaking to fintech and innovation. So that was huge. And we made that department what it should be. And it became, a star department until I was moved to become, to go back to my first love, teaching. Right. So I was posted to the Nigerian Capital Market Institute, where we also decided again to do what we know best how to do, provide quality and service. And we did that for 2.5 years until called it the noble day that Mr. President decided to take me up.
Well, what an interesting journey. It's enough to even write a book. Hope you write
my memos. Yes, my memos will come soon.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, 3 things you mentioned. Your experience with Ms. Dey Sekine. We know her role. She was once acting
DG of
the SEC. And also the fact that you headed the registration, which will come to that also. I know why you're passionate about your registrations. And of course, the experience you've garnered over time, the dedication and hard work. It's quite remarkable. But let me allow Mr. Teslim to go on.
Thank you, Otto.
His perspective.
I'll call him Dr. Digital.
Dr. Digital.
Because in recent months,
Yes.
that's what everybody has associated him with,
Yes.
digital assets.
Yes.
We'll talk about digital assets, but not immediately.
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by his story. 2 things. Number 1, I was in Uniben too. So great Uniben.
Great people. Yeah.
Number 2 was the fact that Mr. Kine actually supervised my project on capital market pricing efficiency. So I'm very aware of the personality you're talking about. Yes, when it comes to assessment, she's top notch. Right. In saying that, quickly, I'd like to ask you this question, which has been as a result of interactions with market operators and other foreign investors. Would you consider the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission fit for purpose? Now, what that basically means for most of them is the fact that in the future, we want to see an emerging market exchange that is a catalyst to growth and development of financial assets. And like I said, I call you Dr. Digital. So you're moving along the right path of that. But would you consider SEC as it is now fit for purpose?
Well, it's a tough question, but I have a straight answer.
Okay.
The straight answer is that everything about regulation speaks to intentionality.
Okay.
Regulation is dynamic, and it requires a resourceful leadership to be able to drive regulation, irrespective. Regulation gives you the opportunity to have an opinion, and your opinion drives the market. So for us at the SSA, and for my team, we are fit for purpose.
Okay.
With a desire to change the narrative.
Okay.
And of course, leave a legacy that no one can fault. We believe that our administration will provide an assignment that will be difficult to solve. To the extent that the things we will create, the road we will actually provide is something that will make a difference anytime, any day. So for us, we are fit for purpose. We know exactly what we want to do. For all of the commissioners at the SEC today, I can tell you without a doubt, we all know exactly what our role is. And what is that role? A catalyst for development.
Okay.
The aphorism that the capital market is the barometer of any economy will come to life with what we are doing.
Okay.
Because that is exactly the truth. We have also ascribed to ourselves that we are a solutionist capital market, making sure that every aspect of the Nigerian economy is touched via the capital market. Because indeed, for everybody to understand, the development of any economy comes from the availability of long-term capital.
Precisely.
Long-term capital comes only from the capital market. Any long-term capital from the banking sector is a manipulation of the financial system. And so, we are the solution. We are the breath of our economy.
I would like to just quickly mention this before Otto chips in. A foreign operator I discussed with talked about some of the challenges they face in their market. And that's why I actually asked whether the Nigerian market is fit for purpose. So with the idea you've expressed now, what are the fundamental changes that we should expect or you have started implementing towards what you see as the future of the capital market in mobilizing long-term capital?
So first is a strong and robust regulatory framework.
Okay.
That we have done successfully. The ISA 2007 is 18 years old. A child that is 18 years old, you know how strong his bones are. And we have successfully gotten the National Assembly to pass the law after 10 years work.
Wow.
10 years work. And we had a singular privilege of updating that law when we came in to meeting the future, to meeting our aspirations, knowing fully well where we are going to. And Mr. President generously signed that bill into law in 7 days. It's record. Any day, anytime. The ISA number 2, 2025 is the second law in Nigeria in the year 2025 to have been gazetted. A document that is over 195 pages. These are landmark achievements. But beyond all of that, a critical factor for the success of our market for the future is digitization. Digitalization is critical. Technology, technology, technology. Because that is the future. Technology for operational efficiency, technology for the future of the market, technology for liquidity's sake, technology for speed, technology for timeliness, and technology for real-time surveillance. So all that we need, and we will need, to put the market on the map of a progressing nation or a progressing continent is technology. Technology laced with talents will give you the results that we are actually looking for.
Digitization, and of course, a robust regulatory framework. And yes, the ISA 2025 is remarkable, game changer. I mean, the recent CMC we attended, there was so much elicited from it and the prospect of developing the markets. One area, of course, that has grown a lot of interest, like you said, is the digital assets. Now we have clarity that they were classified as digital securities. Globally, of course, SEC is part of IOSCO, the International Organization of Securities Commissions. There has been this need for clarity on how to regulate the digital asset space. Your colleague, Paul Atkins of the US SEC, is already looking at how to provide those guidelines, frameworks for cryptocurrency and related digital assets, just to instill confidence. And just recently, the UK Financial Conduct Authority, also Financial Conduct Authority, are looking at how to provide that clarity framework to cryptocurrency with submissions. They're not asking for people to send in their views on how the rules and regulations should be improved. So I'm going to ask you, this is a breakthrough for digital assets and commendation to the hard work of the entire ecosystem. But we're seeing the Ponzi schemes. Recently, Proshare wrote an article around Ponzi schemes. It was remarkable to know that we've had over 200 Ponzi schemes, and the recent one around CBEX took over 1 trillion naira of Nigerian investments. If you put that into the market cap of the equities, I know, DJ, you would really be happy to talk about that. But the most important thing we're looking at is, beyond what you've been doing, we've seen you issue various advisory on certain unregistered platforms. What should happen more? For example, actions like working with the CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission, and the Central Bank of Nigeria to say, this platform is not registered, just withdraw their registration, or to the banks, this firm is doing investment activities, the banks should just seize the assets or put a freeze, working with the CBN. Because what you're already doing about issuing the advisory is good and the warning, but there's a desire for more stringent steps to deter people from unregistered investment schemes.
Clearly, you are not far from it. And perhaps we have not spoken about it. One of the first things we did in the wake of all of this re-emergence of the Ponzi scheme was to reach out to our dear colleague, the CAC. And we did. The CAC, and perhaps you also didn't see that, issued, an advisory to say that no company in this country anymore can operate with an acronym without its registration with the CAC. That was as a result of the partnership and collaboration between the SEC and the CAC. We have gone further to speak to the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation,
NBC, yeah.
NBC, to say, NBC, speak to Otto and his group of companies that no advertisement comes regarding any investment without the clearance of the SEC or an approval by the SEC. We are in talks with NOA.
Okay.
We are going everywhere. Of course, we are relating with our sister organization, the Central Bank of Nigeria, providing information and intelligence. We are in talks with NFIU. We're in talks with the ONSA. We, as the SEC, believe strongly that we are a rallying force. And so it's our responsibility to reach out. Reaching out because Nigerians who intend to become investors must be protected.
They must be.
However, it is critical to mention that if you put your money in an unregistered scheme, you are not an investor, you are a victim. Because we're empathic, we will work out a way to protect the victims and encourage them to become investors.
Yeah.
Becoming investors means the investment in a registered entity or vehicle. The Investment and Securities Act 2025, number 2, says that the SEC regulates the investment and securities business in Nigeria. So, if you are not registered, then you are illegal. Because registration is actually the hallmark of regulation.
There were several of these platforms that some of them have parent companies in Europe or America where they are regulated, but here have not been regulated at reaching out. The process for enabling them registered.
It's very simple. It's very simple and seamless. I headed the registration department, so I know clearly what it is. It's intentionality. You want to run a business in a country. The primary responsibility of requesting to know how that business is regulated is on you who wants to run the business. So all you need to do is to reach out to the SEC. Besides, the regulatory requirements are on our website. Our telephones are just a stroke away. So, if they do not have the intention primarily to defraud and dupe Nigerians, they would have reached out to the SEC to be registered. But besides that, it is the responsibility of will-be investors to confirm from the SEC if these institutions or vehicles are registered by the SEC.
Okay.
There's an issue that has been close to Proshare's heart, and it's the issue concerning free float and the regulation of free float. Like I said earlier, I'm particularly interested in pricing efficiency in the capital market. And we had regulations around free floats. They were later changed and all that. So if you have a certain threshold, 40 billion naira, then you don't need to meet certain requirements. However, I have, and Proshare has some concerns. Some institutions have just slightly over 2% free float in the market. Some on the premium board have 5%. And we're saying you want to determine the value of that company. But it's only the demand and supply involving 3% or 2% of shareholders that you are using to determine the total value of a company. And we feel that that might need to be reviewed. I have heard the arguments that you don't want to discourage some of these big ticket companies from coming to the market. However, we believe that in the interest of minority shareholders, appropriate pricing of those equities becomes a very salient issue. And we think maybe SEC will take a look at that. And I don't know what SEC position is currently, but we feel concerned about it so that we don't have a situation where we have certain stocks having very high price earning ratios based on very small quantity of traded equity. I don't know what your take is on that.
Thank you, Teslim. Like I said, the market is a talent-driven market. And it is a market that requires deep thinking and deep thoughts. You do not act on the sentiments of people in the market as a regulator. You take a total look at the environment. The theory of free floats is not cast in stone.
Okay.
We must understand that the regulatory regime that the Nigerian capital market is exposed to is that of disclosure, full disclosure, and not a regimented regime, which is about rule-based. So under a full disclosure regime, all that is required is you disclose. My name is TSB, and I was born in Isaleko under the bridge. That is a disclosure. If by that same reason, the now glorious Mrs. TSB decides to marry you, you have disclosed. It is a choice to say, I'm looking for somebody else whose name starts with an O. Okay. Exactly as an analogy. That is what securities are. The free float, what is free float really? Is the availability of securities exactly. For trading. And these securities are available and Otto has refused to go and buy because his interest is something else. Are you saying that the majority shareholder is not at liberty to take up what is available? Securities are there. Has there been any time where investors have come to the market to say, we want to buy a particular security and the security is not available? The market is about demand and supply. And if we're speaking to pricing efficiency, we remember that in a perfect market, it is free entry, free exit. It is difficult for us as the SEC to demonize institutions that are listed in the market for which the free float rule has been breached as a result of the lack of interest or inability of would-be investors to buy from it. So we must understand this very well and go take a step back to the theoretical underpinnings around free float. Rather than see it as a violation, we see it as a challenge of liquidity. Okay. And that challenge of liquidity, we will solve How do we solve it? We are reintroducing market making into the market, wherein there is a ready-made buyer and a ready-made seller. We're building a market for international standards that is not driven by coercion, but driven by the fundamentals for investments.
Okay, before you drop on that thought, I knew that certain operators complained bitterly when certain telcos came to the market. And then there's this tendency for them to come in by way of introduction rather than public offer. So the existing shares come onto the market, and there's very little for any new investor who keenly interested and perhaps has the capacity to buy those shares, to actually access those shares. That was one problem we noticed with two companies. Well, two companies in the telco sector, and then one company in the building material sector. Are we saying, therefore, based on what you have said, that that might not necessarily be a problem? That I come by way of introduction? Because the former practice in the good old days, as one of my friends will say it, the good old days was that a minimum of 5% of the equity introduced must be made available for those purchase by those who want to purchase the stock when they are coming to the market. But now that's no longer a condition. So I can just bring the whole of my shares into the market, decide to just list it to gain some price valuation of that equity. But there's no active trading because really and truly, I mean, it's a boys club game. Those who have already held the stocks sell and buy amongst themselves. Some stockbrokers have complained to us, and we said we'll use this opportunity to talk to the oracle himself that whether this really should be considered a problem.
Well, there are two ways to look at it. I know very well that the provisions around this making stocks available under the theory of listing by introduction still persists.
Okay.
It's still there.
Okay.
So the question is it enough? Depending on the nature of the stock.
Okay.
So because of the dynamism of the market, if we have discovered that what is made available is not enough, we are happy as the SEC to review the rules to accommodate more. Very, very happy to do so. But if it's a wolf cry, then it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
The truth is, I'm not sure if you have a stock that is good as TSB, you want to give it up because you love Otto too much.
Very good point. Otto, please.
Yeah, I mean, the DJ has been really clear on some issues. And I'm happy to hear that market making is coming back. I mean, good old days of market making. And that even drives to indexes because, you know, indexes show how strong markets are spread. In Europe and United States of America, other markets, we see how powerful and robust indexes are. Innovation, price discovery, and tracking of market performance. And in that regard, Proshare is also looking at developing some indexes that are uniquely free float weighted with the Nigerian Exchange Limited.
That's why I asked about free float.
Yeah. So what is SEC's view of developments like this and prospects of other indexes? Yeah.
We are pro-development. We are pro-innovation. We are pro-markets. So whatever will bring some new characteristics and features in our markets, as long as they do not harm our investors on the line, we'll embrace it. Markets are about origination and innovation.
Exactly.
There's no static market that ever develops. And here we are. The idea is to create products that everyone in this country will have a value for. We have moved beyond the theory of selling. We're in the theory of marketing. And in the theory of marketing, you produce what the consumer needs and not produce what you think you will sell.
Mr. DJ, brilliant response to Otto's question. But it leans into a question I would like to ask you concerning the SEC's outlook for the market as a whole in the areas of digital technology, in the areas of oversight, in the areas of African exchange linkage program, going beyond Nigeria to link up with other markets. The AELP has been there for quite some time, and we talked to some investors in South Africa and Kenya who would love to invest in Nigeria, but there are still those complications and walls that prevent that happening. So I was wondering whether there's any fresh development, fresh insights you could share with us on those type of things.
Thank you, TSV. You are pricking my mind. But okay, right. I have the singular privilege of becoming the chairman, most recently, of the West African Securities Regulators Association.
Okay. Wow, WASRA. That's a good one. That's a good one.
So I am the current chairman. And that speaks volumes. We want to get the market running across Africa.
Africa, exactly.
I also had the privilege of hosting the first WAMIC meeting in Nigeria when I was a boy that gave birth to WASRA.
Yeah.
Today, I chair WASRA. So everything that we need to do to build that interconnectivity, we will do. But beyond all of that, I am a visionist, a Pan-Africanist. And so, right at the side of the last IO school meeting, I proposed the formation of the African Securities Regulators Association. And God willing, in the year 2026, in Egypt, at the next IO school meeting, it will be formally launched.
Okay.
However, we're trying to get it through at the next AU meeting, right? That will take place in 2026. Why do we want to do this? We want to do this to facilitate trade among African nations, to facilitate relationship and communication through investments. And so we believe that it's time that the AELP program is pushed from behind. It's enabled from behind. Because it only speaks to the old laws of physics. The body will continue to be in a state of rest unless an external force acts on it. The African Securities Regulators Association is that external force.
Wow.
Very interesting.
That will complement what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area
Certainly
is doing, and that will be quite
Before
remarkable.
I allow you to go, just one question I would like to add. The president has done something that I appreciate a lot. He has demonstrated big, hairy, and audacious plans for the country. For instance, the decision that, look, we need, by 2030, we need to head towards a $1 trillion economy. And you've made mention of something. To key into that vision, we need to mobilize long-term capital. So where is the SEC in this equation?
the SEC is everywhere in the equation.
Okay.
The SEC is the A, is the X, is the D, is the F, is the G, and is the everything. Because money makes the world go round. That money for the market and for the economy comes from the capital market. We have demonstrated our commitment, even among government institutions. We stood behind the recently launched MREF program for housing financing in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Yes. That was oversubscribed. It's a 1 trillion naira issuance program. And of course, the first tranche of 250 billion was oversubscribed.
Oversubscribed, yes, exactly.
It speaks to our vision. It speaks to our support for government and government programs. Because we know and we believe, besides trusting, that Nigerians have enough capacity for investments. It is our fervent dream and hope that as we grow, we'll teach our children how to save, converting those savings to investments,
Exactly.
and making sure that the investment equation is properly delivered. It's our responsibility to continue to educate Nigerians, to continue to encourage Nigerians to see that investment in the future is investment for life. And we hope that you of the other realm will help in propagating this.
Yes. Just a minute. Your word for young people who want to come on board to the markets. I know you're passionate about digitalization and all that, and the markets for the demography is young. What should they expect?
Well, I'm a young man, so I joined them to say, this is the time to join the train. You're either in it or you will never be in it. Invest, but verify.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. Dr. Emomotimi Agama, Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria. What an interesting fireside chat on a fit-for-purpose regulatory environment for an inclusive Nigerian capital market. I mean, for you, Mr. Teslim Shitta-Bey, Director of Research, I believe you've got enough nuggets and insights from first perspective.
Certainly.
But it was nice having you. I know you will ask more. Yeah. It was nice having you also on this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Very, very rich conversation. And to our viewers, that was a very interesting fireside chat conversation powered by Proshare and of course produced by Web TV, looking at a fit-for-purpose regulatory environment for an inclusive Nigerian capital market. We had Dr. Emomotimi Agama, the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, also known as the Digital DG, giving insights to what to expect from the capital market regulatory environment and how it can catalyze developments in Nigeria and across the region. To come your way again, follow our website and also our social media platforms for further conversations around the capital market and economy. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong, your uncle. Thank you for watching and bye for now.